Right now, locked down, these religious sisters came to New York City on a mission, but now there's no way to get them home.
We're working together to bring Jesus to the people.
Hear how they're still living their faith in the country's hotspot. Fleeing New York as cases spike, thousands of city dwellers are hitting the road in search of a haven. And the Our Father heard around the world, Pope Francis imploring God's mercy. Plus, nowhere is safe for New York City's homeless. Where do they go? What do they eat?
They just looked over. Nobody wants to see them.
Guardian angels putting their lives at risk to help the most vulnerable. The news starts right now. Good evening, I'm Christine Persichetti. Tonight, there's a glimmer of hope from Governor Andrew Cuomo. New York is still the epicenter of the coronavirus crisis in America, but there are signs that strict stay-at-home policies are working.
The evidence suggests that the density control measures may be working. And again, we're doing this from projections.
And those projections are showing that hospitalizations could be slowing down. On Sunday, the patient count was doubling every 2 days. On Monday, it was doubling every 3.4 days. And on Tuesday, that had risen to almost 5 days. Nuns on a Lenten mission to the Diocese of Brooklyn are stranded tonight because of the virus, yet they're not wasting any time in helping boost the faith of Catholics here. Currents News' Tim Harfman has the story from Woodside, Queens.
In the name of the Father, and the Son.
Father Christopher O'Connor and this group of nuns are evangelizing through electronics at Blessed Virgin Mary Help of Christians Parish.
We're working together to bring Jesus to the people.
The religious women are on a Lenten mission trip from Colombia and planned on returning home April 4th. But Colombia closed its borders. Now the 6 sisters are stranded.
A little worried because we are human.
They're making the most of their situation, helping Father O'Connor live stream bilingual videos in English and Spanish, and they're going viral.
We can feel the power of Jesus.
These singing sisters live streamed a concert from the Queen's Church, which had 100,000 hits. They posted a procession last week, walking 4 miles with the Blessed Sacrament through the streets of Woodside, Queens.
So I ask you, do not walk with us so we don't have big crowds, but just be the sisters, myself, singing. Come outside the house if you want, or just look from your window.
The video has been seen 25,000 times. They processed again Tuesday, capturing this emotional parishioner as Father O'Connor stopped by her house.
I blessed her, and she just said, I really miss church. She started crying. And I said, I know, that's why I'm here.
They continue to post daily on the parish's social media pages, live streaming masses, holy hours, and evening reflections, all to spread the faith and plead for an end to the virus crisis.
The prayer is our strength.
In Woodside, Queens, Tim Harfman, Currents News.
Stay with us for more on the live masses in the Brooklyn Diocese. They're being shown right here on Net TV. The complete list is coming up. Bishop DiMarzio is highlighting the need for spiritual aid amid the pandemic. On this Feast of the Annunciation, when Mary said yes to the Archangel, the bishop is urging us all to pray the Rosary.
Today we're in the chapel of the bishop's residence. We have a beautiful window of Our Lady here with a young Jesus. We see how she took care of him, and Mary will take care of us also. So this is a good time to really ratchet up our prayer of the Rosary.
The bishop is following the experts' recommendation to stay home during the crisis, but he is delivering frequent messages of hope to the diocese on Twitter and Facebook. The diocese is reporting a total of 25 confirmed coronavirus cases in 16 churches. Some include priests. All of the affected locations are undergoing deep cleanings using the disinfectants and procedures recommended by the CDC. Overall, infections are still soaring in New York. Statewide, there are nearly 31,000 confirmed cases, more than 7% of all cases worldwide. There have been 285 deaths in the state. New York City has almost 18,000 patients that have been confirmed as coronavirus victims. And as cases surge, many New Yorkers are getting out of town, searching for a safe haven. That's causing a lot of concern at the White House over fears these people are disease carriers. At City Hall, the mayor says time is running short to get desperately needed help to our hospitals.
Right now, I am satisfied we can get through this week in New York City in terms of our healthcare system. And even with that, I think some of our hospitals are going to be very stressed.
The White House Coronavirus Task Force's coordinator asking anyone who's visited New York State recently to take action now.
Everybody who was in New York should be self-quarantining for the next 14 days to ensure that the virus doesn't spread to others, no matter where they have gone.
Governor Andrew Cuomo blasting the federal government, saying it needs to provide more medical equipment like ventilators.
How can we be in a situation where you can have New Yorkers possibly dying because they can't get a ventilator, but a federal agency saying, I'm going to leave the ventilators in the stockpile?
The president firing back, saying it's Cuomo's problem, not his.
He's supposed to be buying his own ventilators. We're going to help.
About half the United States has been ordered to stay at home, with more coming by week's end. But President Trump still optimistic the country will be back to normal in less than 3 weeks.
I would love to aim it right at Easter Sunday, so we're open for church service and services generally on Easter Sunday. That would be a beautiful thing. We can socially distance ourselves and go to work.
Meanwhile, the nation's top infectious disease doctor says it's impossible to set a deadline.
You can look at a date, but you got to be very flexible and on a literally day-by-day and week-by-week basis. Obviously, no one is going to want to tone down things when you see what's going on in a place like New York City.
Other states like Louisiana, which has one of the highest growth rates of the virus, are also asking for federal help. The mayor of New Orleans says more than 50% of the people in her EMS department are under quarantine. A timely discovery made at the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. during this coronavirus crisis. A worker there found boxes of respirator masks in the cathedral's crypt. They were purchased more than 10 years ago during a previous health scare. The Protestant cathedral is now donating the 5,000 masks to 2 different hospitals. After days of wrangling, the Senate was set to pass a $2 trillion emergency relief package aimed at stabilizing the economy. But there's been some snags that still need to be worked out. Earlier today, lawmakers were touting the bipartisan effort.
At last, we have a deal. It's good news for families all across America.
To all Americans, I say, help is on the way, big help and quick help.
The far-reaching deal will help boost a damaged U.S. economy. The bill includes $250 billion for direct payments to individuals and families, $250 billion in unemployment benefits, $350 billion in small business loans, and $500 billion for distressed companies. The vote could happen later tonight or be pushed until Friday. Amid the global coronavirus crisis, Pope Francis invited Christians everywhere to join him this morning for the Lord's Prayer. The service was live streamed at midday Rome time. Melissa Butts has an exclusive report from outside St. Peter's Square.
Pope Francis led an Our Father in Latin in unison with Christians of every denomination, race, and age. It was for the end of the pandemic.
Pater noster, qui es in celis, sanctificetur nomen tuum. Adveniat regnum tuum.
The Lord's Prayer is another global initiative by Pope Francis to spiritually unite the world, begging for the coronavirus to end.
Come figli fiduciosi ci rivolgiamo al Padre. Vogliamo implorare misericordia per l'umanità duramente provata dalla pandemia di coronavirus.
The prayer is for the sick, their families, healthcare workers, law enforcement, and volunteers. On the Feast of the Annunciation, Pope Francis recalls Mary's yes, saying it reminds Christians that God is near, even though it may not feel like it.
Molti di noi celebrano l'incarnazione del Verbo nel seno della Vergine Maria, quando nel suo eccomi umile e totale si rispecciò l'eccomi del Figlio di Dio.
The prayer was followed by a rosary and angelus prayed by Cardinal Angelo Camastri in St. Peter's Basilica. A handful of men and women were present in the church for it, all respecting the 3 feet distance required by Italian law during the coronavirus.
Ave Maria, piena di grazia.
The Pope continues these virtual prayers as currently there are 4 people who have tested positive for coronavirus inside the Vatican. They are all isolated and are either being cured back at home or in Italian hospitals. At the Vatican, Melissa Butts, Currents News.
The Holy Father will give an extraordinary blessing to the world on Friday. The Urbi et Orbi blessing is usually reserved for Christmas and Easter. The Pope will bestow it now because of the pandemic. It will be broadcast live from the Vatican at 1 p.m. New York time. The Catholic Church in Ireland today consecrated itself to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Irish bishops are taking the step for strength and protection from the coronavirus. Archbishop Eamon Martin said now more than ever the Church is committed to prayer, solidarity, and compassion. There are new signs tonight that the coronavirus crisis is easing in China. Teams of hazmat workers are disinfecting the public transportation network in Wuhan. The city of 11 million is where coronavirus first erupted. The Wuhan lockdown is to be lifted in 2 weeks. Here are some more headlines on the coronavirus crisis. India, with a population of 1.3 billion, is on nationwide lockdown to halt the spread of the disease. Spain now has more virus deaths than China, with a toll that's closing in on 3,500. Only Italy has more. And Britain's Prince Charles has tested positive for the virus and is self-isolating. There's a lot more news headed your way. Angels among us, the guardian angels, coming to the rescue of some of the city's most vulnerable during this pandemic. Plus, church on TV. Since you can't go to Mass, we're bringing Mass to you right here on Net TV. The schedule is just ahead. And churches across Kentucky ringing their bells at the same time. We'll tell you why.
Our closeness is what makes us who we are. That is what New York is. Our closeness is what makes us special.
But the governor adds that makes New Yorkers especially vulnerable to the coronavirus. And one group in the city is a greater risk than most. Despite the stay-at-home order, the guardian angels are on New York streets to help them, the homeless. Today, our Emily Druby joined the angels near Penn Station.
It's an eerie scene. The roads and sidewalks surrounding Penn Station, normally packed with people, now they're silent. Millions of New Yorkers can hide from the deadly coronavirus inside their homes, but the homeless population is exposed outside. So the guardian angels are stepping up.
You always have the water with you.
Not letting COVID-19 stand in the way of helping them in Penn Station and on the subways.
They're forgotten. People pass by them.
Braving the coronavirus to make sure the homeless have food, water.
You're going to wash your hands first.
A way to wash their hands and, most importantly, support.
You know, we're here to give you some food and just know that we're here and we love you.
According to the nonprofit Bowery Mission, nearly 1 in every 125 New Yorkers is homeless. That's out of a city of over 8 million people. The group's founder, Curtis Sliwa, says they were inspired to help because the government wasn't doing enough.
The homeless and the emotionally disturbed persons are the last in the chain of humanity, and we're making sure they get cared for.
Curtis is considering a run for mayor. He says if he was in charge, the pandemic would have been treated differently.
You have to show that you're compassionate as the mayor. You have to be out there with the people, and not just the rich people making your contributions.
As the fight against the coronavirus rages on, the group is urging the young and healthy to help.
If you're young and you're able to get involved, get involved.
As the guardian angels say, one person can make a difference. In Midtown Manhattan, Emily Druby, Currents News.
Jesus is watching you. Jesus is watching you.
And joining us now from Midtown Manhattan is Curtis Sliwa. Welcome, Curtis.
Oh, pleasure to be joining you again.
Yeah, all the health experts warn about being cautious during this time and social distancing to stop the spread of the virus. But your group is still on the streets. Why?
Well, first off, we're there tending to the homeless and the emotionally disturbed persons who, under normal circumstances, are ignored by city authorities, state authorities. And I said to myself, when I was brought up as a child, I went to Catholic school. The Josephite nuns raised me there in Crown Heights at St. Matthew's. And they would always say, Jesus tended the lepers. Now, I don't remember any of those pictures showing Jesus with gloves on, a hazmat suit, a respirator, or a mask. And more importantly, recently, I saw all the pictures of Mother Teresa and her nuns in Calcutta dealing with those who were afflicted with leprosy. They didn't have gloves on. They didn't have masks on. Someone has to go out and tend to these people. And if it's only out of self-interest, I say to all citizens, if the coronavirus infects the homeless and the emotionally disturbed persons who can't shelter in, they live in the subways, they live in Penn Station, they live in the streets, they live in the parks, who do you think is going to get the coronavirus? All of us too. So we have to take care of these people that nobody seems to care about.
Now, you've said you should fear not because the angels fear not. As the leader of the guardian angels, have any of the other angels expressed concern about going out right now? And if they do, what do you tell them?
Oh, of course. All the guardian angels are volunteers, and some of them, they have low immunities, they're taking medication. It would make them more subject possibly to getting the coronavirus. So no, nobody is forced to do it. But unlike other leaders, especially our politicians who say, do as I say, not as I do, I'm a leader who wants you to do as I do because I'm out there, no gloves, no mask. I'm holding the homeless, the emotionally disturbed, trying to comfort them in the best way we can with food, nourishment, and most importantly, washing their hands and washing their face for them.
All right, you're also planning on running for mayor. How do you think Mayor de Blasio is handling the coronavirus crisis, and what would you do differently?
Mayor de Blasio is horrible. He's not reassuring. He's not comforting. He's like Chicken Little. The sky is falling. Oh, things won't get back to normal till September. We need a comforting voice to be mayor. Remember, right after 9/11, we had Rudy Giuliani. We didn't know where our President Bush was. We didn't know where Cheney was. He was comforting. He was reassuring at a much worse time for all of us than this coronavirus spread. That's what we need in a mayor.
How would you strike that balance between protecting the vulnerable and dealing with the crisis?
I think we just all have to understand this virus is all about us. The rich are going to get it, the middle class, the poor, the emotionally disturbed, the homeless, and we can all come together as us and we. Notice what they're telling us as they tell us to shelter in. It's to stay away from our neighbors. They're basically saying, our neighbors may actually be our enemy, not our real enemy, but they may have the hidden virus in them. This so goes against the grain of how I was brought up by my family in a Catholic household. It was always us and we, not I and me.
All right, Curtis Sliwa, founder of the Guardian Angels, thanks for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure, anytime.
Still to come, we'll give you the live Mass schedule on Net TV. The tablet team is hard at work to bring you the news, and it's still in print. From the latest on the parishes hardest hit by the virus to messages of hope and some fun features to keep you occupied. The editor-in-chief will be here to fill us in. Church bells ring out in Kentucky. We'll tell you about the sign of hope. And check this out, a check on Times Square, practically a ghost town as people abide by the stay-at-home order. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Catholics across the Brooklyn Diocese are being urged to watch Mass right here on Net TV. Here's the schedule of live services Monday through Friday. 8 a.m. English, 8:30 Creole, 9 Spanish, 9:30 Polish, 10 Italian, 10:30 Chinese, and 11 a.m. the Korean Mass. Here's the schedule for live Sunday Masses. 8 a.m. Korean, 9 Creole, 10 Italian, 11 English, noon Polish, 1:30 p.m. Spanish, and 3 p.m. Chinese. Net TV is New York's Catholic station, and you can find it on Verizon's Fios Channel 48, on Optimum's Channel 30, and on Spectrum's Channel 97. The Mass schedule is online at netny.tv. The tablet has never been more important to all of us than it is right now. Inside its pages, there's a comprehensive look at our diocese during these days, offering perspective on the crisis and hope. The newspaper is reporting that although churches are closed, priests of the diocese are creating great ways to stay in touch with the faithful. And there's a full schedule of live masses that are being broadcast on Net TV. Joining us now is the tablet's editor-in-chief, Jorge Dominguez. Hi, Jorge.
Hi, Christine.
Bishop DiMarzio's column is full of information about strengthening faith during this Lenten season that's unlike any that's come before. He's writing about a special prayer that is good for our spiritual health. What is it?
It's a prayer for a spiritual communion when you cannot be physically in the Mass. And the prayer, by the way, it is in the tablet too. But also he talks about recommending people to watch the Mass on TV, and we have the whole schedule of the Masses on Net TV. We recommend people to pray the Rosary, and we also have that information in the paper when you can watch the Rosary on TV. This edition is full of useful information for the readers.
All right, and with churches being closed, now is the time to subscribe to the tablet, right?
Yes, I mean, this is a difficult time, but it's the right time to subscribe to the paper, because you're going to get a whole information about the diocese, all the serious stuff that is going on, but also things to do at home during these times, like Catholic puzzles, like recipes to cook with your family. So you got a lot of information that you are going to find in the tablet.
All right, and we'll provide that information on subscribing in a moment. But before we go, a positive story about our faith. Priests have been taking to the internet to make sure parishioners are connected to their church and to Christ. And your centerfold showcases a lot of those stories. But as a final tease before we go, tell us about the bell blessing at Presentation of the Blessed Virgin Mary in Jamaica.
Well, they restored the bells of the church. And Bishop Cisneros, the auxiliary bishop of Brooklyn and Queens, went there for the blessing of the bells, and they screenlighted they put it in Facebook, and in less than 3 hours they have 1,000 views. But the thing is that now they are broadcasting all the masses, and they are live streaming them in Facebook, and they rang the bells when they are going to do the Mass. So that way parishioners know that they have to go to Facebook. It's a mix of tradition and technology in favor of prayer. We have a lot of inspiring stories in the tablet too, like that, Christine.
All right, that's great. Jorge Dominguez, editor-in-chief of the tablet, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you, Christina. Stay safe.
As I talked about with Jorge, now is the time to subscribe to the tablet. Doing so brings the newspaper directly to your mailbox, and you'll save up to 55% by having it delivered to your home. Go to the website, thetablet.org/home55, or call 877-883-8356. The Vatican's official newspaper and that of the Pittsburgh Diocese are suspending publication due to the pandemic. The shutdown of the Holy See's paper is the first time since 1870, when Italian troops occupied the papal state. In Pittsburgh, the diocese is putting publication on hold since the newspaper can't be distributed through closed parish churches. It was a sound of hope that rang out this morning in Kentucky. Churches across the state rang their bells at the same time to let people know, even though they may be home by themselves, they're not alone. Members of this church in Owensboro say things like this keep the community connected.
We cannot gather in prayer, but we can unite in prayer, and I think that's just a wonderful thing to do to keep our connection to one another at this time of separation.
Kentucky's governor also wants businesses and homes to turn on green lights to represent compassion for the thousands diagnosed with coronavirus and the millions affected by the outbreak. That is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us, because we are putting your faith in the news. Be well and God bless. Good night.